Hello, everyone, and thank you for watching, for tuning in. I want to share a little bit more about dealing with chronic pain. The reason for that is that, well, I've actually spoken about this quite a few times already, because it simply forms part of what I do so much. So many of my students and clients suffer from some kind of chronic conditions or chronic pain. And I've shared, the kind of some of the neurological background behind that. I spoke about how we're having to change the stories, how we might work with people who suffer from chronic pain, what it actually is, what the different types of pain are, all of that. And the reason I wanted to come on talk about it again is, well, one, that I don't think we can talk about it enough in a way, because I think it's an important topic to discuss, to explore, to make space for, to acknowledge, to hear, but also because I want to add something. I want to add something to what I've been talking about so far. The other reason I thought there's a couple more things that kind of sort of inspired me to come on again talking about this. One is I was recently teaching at a yoga festival here in Portugal, and I actually did a workshop on chronic pain, and it was so wonderful to see the hunger for this information and the need for this information as well. And it was a mixture of teachers as well as practitioners, and yeah, it was good to see. And I'm kind of really hoping that we can all become a lot more aware of what is actually at play when we're working with people who are suffering from pain, or maybe what is at play if we're suffering ourselves. And that's one of the other reasons I wanted to come on and share again, and that's actually also a little bit where my addition is coming from. And you already heard me talk about a little bit my own lower back pain a couple of times. So I've been managing a little bit of a funny lower back the last couple of months. It turned out to be mostly my psoas muscle having gone into some rebellion, and still talking to me from time to time. And so it's been a really healthy reminder of what is involved in this process. And yeah, as much as I obviously don't enjoy the pain, but I'm also loving being able to really draw from that, and share more and share my own insights again. So, one of the things that I go on and on and on about is about how we can empower people to change the stories around the pain from the story of pain to a story of health. That's a really important factor. I spoke about this already and I won't go into that too much now. The importance of really reminding the body of what is available in the movement, what is the full range of movement available, so that we don't suddenly develop all sorts of crazy patterns around the pain. I mentioned this before, how within a couple of days of having a bit of a twinge in my back, I started moving like an 83-year-old, picking things up from the floor in the most ridiculous way, but actually hurting my back even more, contracting like this, and not letting my body just kind of bend down and pick something up, which it was perfectly able to do. So things like this, and also the other factor is that many of us actually feel the pain exactly what we're being told to feel the pain. There's a huge complexity around this. The vast majority of people I work with who are suffering from pain or back pain, or whatever it might be, there is such a kind of noticeable level of anxiety at play, and usually people are actually also really aware of the stories that are playing part of the whole thing. The other thing is that there's this multitude of causes and issues that could be at play, and we kind of need to address it from all different angles. And this is like a key reminder I'm taking from my current psoas issues. Really, not only zooming in and focusing on this psoas muscle, but really thinking about all of the factors involved, which will lead to kind of one of the things that the main thing that I want to add in a moment, because I really want to share the things that I'm specifically doing or should be doing. Don't always do them. Should be doing to really manage and heal this. But it could be that we need to move more. Or that we need to find ways to release more, or to relax, or to rest more. There's so many different aspects to this. Maybe we need to change our diet and also clean the body from the inside out. Maybe things have gone a bit toxic. Maybe things have gone really stagnated. So there is this, what I'm finding. So aspect number one, here it is. The need to really consider all different aspects to support the healing process and to create the better conditions for the healing, and to not zoom in on the story of the psoas muscle or whatever it might be that's at play. That, and then in combination with that to really make the time for your healing. And this is not so easy. So in the ideal scenario, I would make 3 specific appointments with myself every single day to do something from my bucket of things that I could do to support my healing and create better conditions for this psoas muscle to stop irritating me. 3 times a day. And I can definitely say from personal experience that it's not always so easy. I get so easily distracted, and we all have our routines and our habits, and then sometimes I literally forget, and I'm like, oh my god, I didn't get on the mat, and because I was so in my routine, and then had to rush out and go wherever I needed to go, and that's so easy to happen. But I can create such a huge difference if I really find the discipline and show up for myself. And it's interesting because, especially as teachers and therapists, we show up fully all the time for others, and it seems really difficult to do that for ourselves. So that's a bit of an interesting one to maybe inquire into a little bit more as well. So I have a pot of things that I find particularly helpful that address different aspects to support my healing. And in the ideal world, and when I do it, it's amazing, I need to show up 3 times a day and make some time for any one of these things. So one would be a few so simple pelvic rotations and tilting that really don't take long, but really help align the pelvis. And that can go and help the hip itself, the psoas for sure, the sacrum, and then everything that goes up into the spine, into the lumbar spine. It will help the tensegrity of the pelvis, all of those tendons and all that tension that we've got there. And actually too, because most of us have got a bit of a wonky pelvis going on, especially if there's one of your psoas muscles going like this, it's likely to be pulling everything across a little bit. And that's a really quick one. And then I'll combine that with a little bit of an activation of inner and outer thigh muscles, which help really stabilize the pelvis. So this would be, literally like 3 or 4 minutes. And that would be something that I might start the day with, because that's a really good, to get me going through the day. So I might share that actual exercise here in a separate video at some point as well, if there is the interest. Very happy to, because it's so simple and so effective. Then obviously getting on the mat and doing my practice, and really, in a way, it could be any practice, but actually getting on the mat a little bit longer. And here, something that I found really, really important, I say, is to, I felt a little bit restricted and limited in my practice, because it was also hurting me sometimes, or certain ranges of movement wasn't really that available. But to actually check in whether it was really not available, or whether there was a little bit of a protective mechanism kicking in, and then slowly and slowly testing that motion and going into a place where that movement was perfectly available. And so really working on reminding my body of the normal range of movement, and not allowing it to become restricted for no actual reason. Yes, of course, there might be an injury, or there might be an actual pathology or something at play where we can't do certain things, and that is absolutely fair enough. But in my example, and many, many, many times, where people feel this kind of back pain, for example, there isn't a pathology, and there is nothing wrong with their spine, or there is no tear in a muscle, or nothing has been pulled. It's not that kind of pain. So the pain is not actually there to ring huge alarm bells. It's something else. And so it's really important to find a way back to the actual available range of movement, so the body doesn't forget it and literally stops having it available. And I see this in some of my students. They might be so stuck in their upper spine or in their lower spine, and it doesn't actually move anymore. And that's not because some parts of their spine got fused or something, not at all. And then, so, that would be one thing in the bucket. And then more specifically, I would also do a self-massage in my case here on the psoas. I work with some trigger points, and breathe with that, and do like actual sort of going in there with my fingers, and also a general belly massage. That would take about 20 minutes. That one is not so easy to share here, but I might, in terms of like a video, I might think about it, how I could possibly do it, or maybe find like a good reference or book or something. So that would be one thing, an actual self-massage on that. Short of being able to actually see somebody to work on my body, which I would also recommend doing. Now, the other thing is really like moving. So one of the big issues that we all suffer from is stagnation, and that means that it can actually be the cause for your back pain in the first place. It could be that bad, but for sure, it doesn't create particularly good conditions for healing, and it creates a much more fertile ground for your chronic pain and chronic conditions to take hold of your body. And with stagnation, I see this quite broadly. So the kind of sluggishness, the lack of communication, the disconnect from parts of the body, the lack of movement, stiffness, tiredness, exhaustion, when we're just a little bit slow, a little bit behind, a bit like, or maybe when we're actually retaining fluids, when our circulation is not particularly good, and we know it, we can feel it on so many levels when there is stagnation. So moving and walking is there will be some things where walking isn't the best thing, but in the vast majority of issues that we suffer from, walking will be one of the best medicines. And so I would either try and make a conscious appointment. So one of my 3 units a day would be to actually go for a walk specifically. Or this is one that I can also try and sneak in as an add-on, right? So instead of taking the metro somewhere, I could go and walk there or whatever, which is in Lisbon, the distances here, for example, are actually really quite doable, or tend to probably only take about 5 minutes longer compared to the metro. So there's no real reason not to walk, but to also maybe do a particular practice that is really focusing on mobilizing. So I love a joint freeing practice. And that one I have definitely already shared here at some point or other, several times, I would think. I don't know, I'll see if I can find it. Joint freeing sequence, super nice to really vitalize the body and get rid of some of that stagnation. So important. Then also, absolute key, and I would definitely try and make that one of my 3 units every day, is to do some breathing exercises and specifically focusing on freeing up the diaphragm. So when our diaphragmatic pressure system is stuck at any part, which usually it is, just because all of our anxiety, tension makes that, holds on to that diaphragmatic pressure system, which is diaphragm, pelvic floor, other membranes that we have. So if that's stuck, then nothing that we are healing in our tissues can really integrate and resonate with the rest of the tissues in our being. So that's really important for the healing process as such. But actually, I'm finding it has an immediate relief from the actual discomfort straight away. Really coming into a full diaphragmatic free breath. And I mean, it makes perfect sense also because obviously that is in direct relationship and works together with the pelvic floor, which is, obviously integral to the pelvis, which is where the psoas muscle in my case runs through, and it's integral to, my sacroiliac joint and all of that. So it's so directly linked, and my psoas muscle having an actual connection to the diaphragm too. So, anyone dealing with sort of that lower back pain thing, the diaphragm will be affected in some way or another. So freeing that with some breathing exercises, that could be anywhere between 10 minutes. I could make this into 20, 30 minutes, of course. Then the other thing that I found particularly helpful actually is resting properly and getting really good sleep. So I'm, going to bed a little bit earlier, or I kind of sort of manage a little bit through my week. If I know that I don't have an early appointment, my working day would start at 10 when I start to get online on the laptop. And so if I then, I know I can maybe, it's just an example, but maybe I can sleep till 8, and that would be really rested, but I would have also gone to bed maybe even like a bit earlier. So I got good, somewhere like 8 or 9 hours of sleep or something like this, maybe even 10, I don't know, that will be luxury. But then I also have a couple of hours in the morning of really like valuable time that I can, I can spend on some nourishment and self-care. And then I already kind of just touched on this. I actually think like looking at the dietary side of things is also really important in this process to, have a look at, like, maybe you're eating quite sort of, you could be eating more anti-inflammatory foods, for example. That would help the process and the healing, or something a bit more neutral, or something a little bit more detoxing, a little bit more nourishing. So it might not be so obvious to say, well, but like this muscle is in a spasm, what's that got to do with anything? But it does, because like I said, just addressing that one muscle, well, I wouldn't actually even know how to, because I can't take it out. It's part of the whole, and so part of the whole is also what I eat in the process. So, and again, supporting the overall healing process. So I didn't actually make a list of these, so I'm just trying to remember if that was all that's in my bucket, but I think it probably is. So that, those are kind of my things that I'm doing, and I'm doing it in combination, and I keep changing them around, and I try my hardest to find that time for myself 3 times a day. And it's not 3 hours a day. It's actually easier than, you kind of sort of think, because some of those things take somewhere between 4 or 10 minutes. So that is quite doable. And still, I actually don't find it that easy. So I kind of sort of have to almost plan it a little bit. So yeah, this is my kind of add-on to all of the other things that are at play here. But that I wanted to share in terms of dealing with chronic pain, or that kind of sort of type of pain that doesn't really have any one particular obvious source, like an injury, a cut, a burn, surgery, an infection or something like this, which is the case with my psoas muscle. It hasn't got that obvious source. Addressing all different aspects to support the body in its healing process and create better conditions for it. And you've got to show up, you've got to make time for it. And my idea is 3 times a day. I mean, do it 5 times or at least once a day, but you've got to show up and actually do the work, because I can keep hoping for the best, but that's not going to cut it. This is something that I'm going to kind of really got reminded of, and and I know this, but to kind of just wait for it is not going to be enough. So there's a few things that I feel like we need to make sure that we don't do. One is, don't ignore it, because like I said, it's not just going to go away. Don't pretend it's not there. Don't ignore it. Don't sort of say, oh, it's not so bad, and blah, I can still do my stuff. And it's funny, really, like how bad something needs to hurt before we actually do something. How ridiculous is that, really? And I see this again and again and again in clients that I work with. Don't ignore it. Also, don't settle. Don't say, well, that's just the way it is. I have this and I have that, and that's just how it is now. Don't settle for it. Don't settle with, don't settle with what I'm telling you, but just don't settle, with, being told, well, there's nothing you can do, or, or believing that there's nothing you can do. There's always something that we can do to make it better. Maybe we can not get rid of it completely, but we can definitely create much better conditions for the body. And the body is designed to heal. The body is designed to heal. So this whole part of changing the story. If we start, as soon as we start to settle and kind of give up, then that's going to be much, much more difficult to then heal. And then don't be lazy. You've got to show up. You've got to make the time. And if you have to put it in your diary, but lazy is not going to help you. And this one is my challenge. I'm definitely a little bit on the lazy side when it comes to these things. So, and don't be a fool. This matters. It matters, because your quality of life matters. What you do matters. You matter. If you're a therapist, a yoga teacher, whatever you do, facilitator, what we do matters. And we can't support anyone and be of service to anyone if we can't move, if we are not well. So don't be foolish. Don't fool around with this. It's important. It matters. And when it really matters, it probably is even more difficult. Go deeper. Go more. Give more. Dig deeper, because it matters. So that's my little add-on. I don't know if that's helpful. Questions, observations, your stories, your experiences, your tricks, advice, things that you found helpful in dealing with your challenges, dealing with this. Love to hear from you as always. Please leave a comment below, ask questions, get in touch. Yeah, always love to connect. Thank you so much for listening and for watching and for tuning in, and take care of yourselves. Bye for now.